Mhm. Hello, Billy.
Hello, Gracefield. You're using
Yes, I have.
close by device, so it's transmitting.
Okay, I have reduced the volume. Is this still echoing?
No, it's better now.
Okay. Mm. Billy, so can you hear me? Are you there?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon, ma.
Oh, afternoon. How is everything now?
Fine.
Hope you are ready.
Yes, I'm anxious.
I know, right? Or everything will go well.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Let's
So
wait
you
for the others to come.
I will wait for the others to come. So you just do the necessary things you need to do.
All right, ma.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. You're welcome. Mm. Rikisu, please can you inform the group that it's time,
All
that is
right.
a safe space. Yeah.
All right, ma.
Recording in progress.
Thank you for joining.
Because I think once is in 5 minutes or 6 minutes to after two. Okay. Then we'll just start.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I go ahead now, or should we wait like 10 minutes?
Okay, let's wait to 10. Once it's to 10, we kick off immediately. Yeah.
All right.
Hi everyone. Please confirm you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Apologies,
Welcome,
I was in
Mercy. We can
the
hear
wait
you.
room. So thank you. I was in the wait room. I also guess it's network. It's raining heavily here. So yeah.
Okay, it's fine. No problem. We are glad to see you.
Yeah.
Welcome,
Thank you so
Messi.
much, Bilkis. Good
Good afternoon.
afternoon.
So, because you can go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
I hope you can
afternoon.
all hear
Yes,
me.
I can.
Yes,
Yes, I
yes,
can.
yes.
Loud and clear actually.
Please chat and chat box to respond to conversations. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all seated comfortably and ready for a section that promises to be both enlightening and empowering. My name is Bilkis Enjuma, and I'll be your moderator for today. Please think of me as your flight attendant because we're about to take off into an important journey. So please fasten your seatbelts because we're about to take off into some deeply important conversations around sexual violence, reproductive tract infections, and women's health. Today, June 19th, we join the world in observing the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence and Conflict, a day that reminds us of the urgency to speak out, support survivors, and demand justice and healing. This event is proudly organized by Disinfect Her Empowerment Initiative. Disinfect Her Empowerment Initiative is a nonprofit organization committed to creating awareness and advocating for support for women and girls, especially in underserved communities where the risk of infections is high. We are passionate about promoting health equity and ensuring that every woman and girl has access to the information, resources, and support they need to prevent and they need to prevent and protect themselves from infection. We work in line with the Sustainable Development Goals 3, 5, and 6. That's good health and well-being, gender equality, and clean water and sanitation. So far, we've reached and empowered over 10,000 women and girls through digital campaigns and community outreach programs. And we are aiming to reach 50,000 African women and girls by the year 2030 with volunteers across Nigeria and Zimbabwe. DHEI continues to grow stronger thanks to people like you who show up, engage, and care. Our vision is to empower women and girls to thrive and live from the threats of infections. And our mission is to raise awareness, advocate, and provide tools and support women need to live healthier, safer lives. So once again, thank you for joining us. Our theme for today is Breaking the Silence, understanding the link between sexual violence and reproductive tract infections, which is powerful. It calls us to listen, learn, and act. To begin this journey, I am honored to welcome the amazing woman behind this movement, the founder of Disinfect Her Empowerment Initiative, Mrs. Gracefield Godwin. She is a passionate advocate for women's health and youth empowerment. Mrs. Gracefield, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Bekisu, for that amazing introduction. As she rightly said, Disinfect Her Empowerment Initiative is focused on protecting the health and well-being of women and girls of reproductive age against infections like reproductive tract infections. So I want to welcome you all for being available to join us in today's conversation. I welcome each and every one of you to today's important conversation to commemorate the International Day of the Elimination of Sexual Violence and Conflict. I'm truly honored to have you all in our midst to join to this conversation. As she rightly said, our theme is today is breaking the silence, understanding the link between sexual violence and reproductive tract infection. This is to speak about painful issues that have happened to women and girls in conflict areas and the after effects, due to issues like rape and sometimes other domestic violence that might happen after conflict or during conflict. There are a lot of scars that comes with it. So I want to say thank you so much for being here as we discuss and create awareness on this issue. On as she rightly said, at DHI we believe that awareness is power, and that by connecting the dots between sexual violence and reproductive tract infection, we empower survivors, equip communities, and cause systems accountable to these issues. Women and girls deserve to live free from violence and free from the preventable infections that can lead to infertility, chronic illness, and long-term trauma. So this program is not just about knowledge. It's about advocacy, it's about prevention and healing. It's about raising our voices for those who have been silenced and equipping ourselves to respond with compassion, clarity, and courage. So we want to put out people out there who would also know what to do in cases like this. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for joining today's conversation. Over to you, Bekisu.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Gracefield, for that inspiring and heartfelt address. Let's now move into the heart of today's section with our first keynote speaker. It is my honor to introduce our first speaker, Mrs. Gracefield Godwin Ezinye. Her section titled The Invisible Scars, How Sexual Violence in Conflict Zones Leads to RTIs, will shed light on the physical and reproductive toll of conflict-related sexual violence. Mrs. Godwin, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much again, Bekisu. First speaker was supposed to take over this session in the person of Cassandra Kande, but due to some issues which she privately mentioned to me, I'm going to be taking her place today. So thank you again for welcoming me to take this session. Today, as we all know, is the International Day of the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflicts. And when we talk about conflicts, we're talking about conflicts, war, and disunity in nations, in states, even in communities. And today, our topic is the invisible scars. This is the topic I'll be focusing on, which is in line with our theme in breaking the silence of sexual violence in conflict. So today, the topic of focus is the invisible scars, how sexual violence in conflict zone leads to reproductive tract infections. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes,
Please
we
give me.
can.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Thank you so much. Yes, okay. So this is something that we need to talk about. During war, a lot of things happen during war. A lot of women are molested, a lot of women are raped, a lot of women undergo through a lot of things, a lot of challenges which are not spoken, which are not heard. And these things becomes very silent. They don't come out to speak because of fear, because of shame, because of segregation. And this can have a long lasting effect on women's overall well-being. And this is why today, in order to make our voice heard, in order to create awareness, in order to educate people, to see the light, to see this darkness that is happening and silently affecting our women and girls of every age, both little, both girls of reproductive age, both women of reproductive age. We need to. That is why we've hosted this conversation, to let people know that there are things happening. There are a lot of things happening underground. There are a lot of things happening to women's health. There are a lot of things. There are scars that are not mentioned. There are scars that are not spoken. And this is why we are doing this. We want people to be aware. We want a lot of people to know. This is how you can come in. This is how you can come in with empathy. This is how you can come in with compassion. We don't want women to feel disregarded. We don't want women to feel their voice cannot be heard. Women who are experiencing these scars after being sexually violated in conflict environments. As we are here, as we all know now in Nigeria, there are a lot of insecurity happening. What happens? What is the after effects of these women when they are being raped? What is the after effects of these women when they are being molested? What do they go through? These are scars that are not spoken. And today I'm going to be talking about these invisible scars, and how, if invisible scars, how sexual violence in conflict zones leads to reproductive tract infections. Most of us don't even know what reproductive tract infection is. These are infections that affect the woman's overall well-being. It affects the woman's ability to produce, to be fruitful, to be fertile. It affects the woman's vagina, her overall system as a woman. That's the part that makes her a woman. That is what reproductive tract infections can do to what all these things that makes a woman a woman. So it requires more than just attention. It demands action. It demands compassion and a shift in how we perceive health, trauma, and justice. So it's beyond we saying that this woman experienced this issue due to conflict. It's beyond that. We need to give more attention. We need to shift our attention to also preserving the health of this woman, these women. We also need to know what, as regards these scars, how we can heal these scars. So sexual violence in conflict zone is not random. It is strategic. This is when people, be it terrorists, be it people who carry out this sexual violence activities on women, show that they are powerful, shows that they are strong, and these things are being, leads to humiliation, leads to a lot of women being scared. So sexual violence in conflict zones is not random. It is strategic. It is used as a weapon to humiliate. It is used as a weapon to destabilize and to destroy women, girls, or even individuals and communities, which involves the raping of vulnerable women just to show how powerful they are. Yet when the gunfire ceases, when these issues come to an end, the media turns away. Survivors are left to They are left to face physical trauma. They are left to face psychological trauma and reproductive, trauma. And amidst this displacement, poverty, and insecurity, these women lack access to safe space, proper medical care, and hygiene essentials. That's why you sometimes you go to IDP, one health issue or the other. They are left with untreated wounds, both seen and unseen. And one of these scars is reproductive tract infection. As I already said, reproductive tract infections are infections that affect the woman's overall reproductive health. So we're going to be talking what is reproductive tract infection. These are infections that are among the most common yet least discussed consequences of sexual violence. These are the least, but nobody pays attention to this. After sexual violence, what is the end result? Sometimes they experience issues, they experience reproductive tract issues that have a long-term effect on their overall well-being. These infections can result from forced unprotected sex, poor hygiene practices, lack of access to treatment, or the use of unclean materials, as I earlier said, especially in internally displaced persons. Displaced persons camp or war affected treated RTIs result to, which includes chronic pelvic pain, infertility, complicated pregnancy, increased risk of cervical cancer, heightened vulnerability to HIV, even sexual transmitted infection. And these things have long impacts in the overall well-being of these women and girls. However, because these symptoms are internally and invisible, survivors often suffer in silence, shamed, blamed, or frequently ignored by the systems meant to protect them. Now, how do we break this cycle? How do we break this silence? To break the cycle of silence and stigma, we must address the psychological and the social aspects attached to sexual violence. That is why we at Disinfect Her Empowerment Initiative, we work to raise awareness about the connection between sexual violence and RTIs. Even in other aspects of a woman's life, RTI is something that we should not keep quiet about. Me as a person, I have single-handedly seen what the impact, the effect of RTIs towards the health of women and girls of reproductive age. And I know the trauma a lot of women go through. I know the impact it does to their overall well-being. So we need to create awareness. This is what we do. We are creating awareness. We are connecting the dots because after this conflict, after this issue that have happened, after sexual violence, what next? What do these women need to do? How do they protect their reproductive health? So we provide education on safe hygiene practices and advocate for inclusive healthcare for women in vulnerable situations. Our aim is to empower survivors with knowledge because knowledge is the first step towards healing. They need to know how to tackle these issues. They need to know how to, to manage these issues. We also strive to create a safe space where every woman can feel safe. What do we do? What can be done? Take as individuals when you go to that conflict environment and you see a woman experiencing a lot of psychological issues, you see a woman who is keeping quiet because she feels the community will mock her, she feels the community will point fingers at her. What do we do as humans? Because change begins with us first. In order to impact our society, in order to influence our society, we need to carry out this change from us. We need to meet to one person one at a time. It starts with one person before two persons, three persons. We need to create an opportunity where people can easily come to us and let their voice heard. We need to create an opportunity where people can easily tell us what is the problem. We need to create a chance for others to speak, for these women to speak, for these women to open their minds that this is what they are going through. You, it begins with me, and this is why I'm taking the action. I am doing this to impact women. Reproductive tract infection is not as easy as you hear it to be. I already listed the implications of reproductive tract infection. Cervical cancer sometimes even results to stillbirths to children. So what do we need to do? What can be done? We need to amplify our voices. We need to amplify our voices and also amplify the voices of survivors. We need to give them platform instead of pity. There is a difference between empathy and pity. We need to be compassionate. When they come to us, we shouldn't make them feel rejected. We need to make them speak up. It is only through speaking that issues can be solved. We need to allow them speak up. We need to allow them create a platform. We need to create an opportunity for them to amplify their voices. We need to invest in productive healthcare in conflict zones and IDP camps. We need to create that atmosphere health, if it's possible, give them materials for them to be able to identify and to be able to manage these infections. We also need to train women and girls of reproductive age to recognize and treat RTIs with urgency and empathy. We need to make them understand that this is what they are going through. This is the problem. You need to treat it. Even allow them have the opportunity to know that they need to go for screening. Teach them not to take any kind of drugs. Teach them how to manage their system in a hygienic way. We also need to integrate education on RTIs and trauma healing into humanitarian response systems. Even as we go to IDP camps or areas where conflicts happen, we also need to, implicate this idea, this knowledge in educating them, and so that they'll be able to easily identify these issues. And we also need to challenge the stigma, because shame has no place in survivor center areas. So we need to challenge the stigma. We need to challenge the shame they feel. We need to, talk to policymakers. We need to create this awareness. We need to involve policymakers on these issues. When conflict happens, women involved, girls will involve. What do we do to their reproductive health? When they are raped, what do we do to them? When they are being molested, how do we help them overcome this psychological, physical trauma that is attached to sexual violence? So in all, I say sexual violence may leave invisible scars, but these scars tell stories that need to be heard. We need to let them tell their story. I was a part of, the Indigenous Story podcast, and we were told to tell our story, how we experienced what we experienced, so that we're able to liberate other women to be able to speak up and speak out. So as I said earlier, it begins or it starts. Allow them tell their stories. If we're serious about ending the cycle of violence and injustice, we must address both the visible and the invisible consequences. Let this not just be another conversation. Let it be a turning point for us to heal women and educate them more on the impacts of reproductive tract infections. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gracefield, for that powerful and thought-provoking presentation. Your words remind us that wounds we can't see still need urgent care and collective action. Thank you once again. Please, can you clap your hands for her? Can you hear me?
Yes, that was great. Yes,
Yes,
I can.
Thank you. All right, up next is our second speaker, Mercy Bolaji, a passionate advocate for girls' education and adolescent sexual and reproductive health. With over 8 years of experience, she has empowered thousands of girls with the knowledge to make informed health choices and overcome barriers to their well-being and success. An Orange Knowledge Scholar, Bayer Scholar, and Open Mind Young Voices Fellow. Mercy holds a degree in biology education and a Master's of Public Health from the KIT Royal Tropical Institute in the Netherlands. She currently serves as technical support lead at Stand With a Girl initiative and contributes to national health policy. Mercy also mentors young girls to challenge harmful norms and advocate for their rights. She will be speaking on healing beyond the wounds, mental health, RTIs, and the journey to recovery. Mercy, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much, Bilkisu, for that warm introduction. And I also want to appreciate Gracefield for the, such a great introduction and just making us see the link between sexual violence and reproductive tract infections, especially for people in hard to reach communities or vulnerable communities. Thank you so much. That was really profound. So I'm going to do something. I want to turn on my video. I know that most times I'll turn on my video, but then I'll turn it off. So most times I like to just turn, so you see the person who is speaking, and then I'll turn it off back for better connectivity. So I'm going to do that now. Please confirm that you can see me. Oh, great. I see Precious. Okay, great, great. All right. I just wanted you to see me, and then I would proceed. All right. So, following up, we will be talking about healing beyond the wounds. And most times, I don't know if we all grew up in Nigeria. I mean, that I think. I'm sorry that I'm generalizing, but majority of us maybe grew up in Nigeria, and we understand how that when we talk about mental health, what comes to people's mind is that, oh, this one is mad, or this one has I mean, should not be part of the society. So let me give you a quick backstory. In 2011, um, by the way, I am from Southwest Nigeria, from my son name, but I grew up in Northern Nigeria, Zaria, Kaduna State to be precise, and all my life has been in the north before I moved to Abuja and then went outside Nigeria for my master's degree. So in 2011, I was in, I think I was in final year of my secondary school. Yes, there was the post-election violence that happened in Zaria, and it happened that my parents' house, and my parents then at the time had a shop, and the shop and the house was together. You know how people usually have like a house, and then like a garage is now used for the shop. So that's how the house was, and it was opposite the campus. That's Ahmadu Bello University campus in Zaria. And then I remember that day we all ran for our safety because they were killing people, just people, some boys around with cutlass and just all the harmful objects that you can ever think of. And I remember that we all ran for our safety, left everything. And in the next 3 hours, when we came back, everything was burned down. When I mean everything was burned down, I mean that everything, literally, it was just the clothes we had on that was left. And at the time, myself, my younger sister were staying with my parents. My two other siblings were in school. The two other ones were married, so it was just me and my younger sister that was with my parents at the time. And I'm getting somewhere with this story, and I want to link it to how that most times when we talk about people affected by displacement, it looks far off, but at one point or the other, we've also become circumstances of this. And like I said, the entire house was burned down. So it meant that we didn't have a house, we didn't have a place to stay, we didn't have clothes to wear, we didn't have food to eat, and name it, just everything that you can ever think of. And I know that my parents have been doing this business in that location before I was born. So it was more like a business that was over 30 years. They've invested so much in that business. They had an extension in front of the shop. It was more like the income. That business saw me through my primary school and even secondary school, trained all of my sisters in the university, and it was burnt down in like hours. Now, linking it with mental health, you at the point I noticed that the conversation with my parents, in fact, it was more like they had killed some other people. We've heard that they'd killed some people. But do you know that at the time, my parents were not hospitalized, but in the way they were speaking, in the way they were communicating, you could see that these ones have already been affected mentally. Because for you to see something that you've invested in for 40 years, this is what has happened to it. Now, this is where I'm headed. Most of these people that are affected by displacement, it's usually they have a lot of mental health challenges and sexual violence. Of course, I don't want to get too much into the story because at some point we moved into the barracks and We were there for a period of 1 week, like a refugee. The soldiers were taking advantage of some other people. I know that the focus of today is not more on humanitarian, but it is more general for people that are affected by, sexual violence and how they can get steps to healing. But I just wanted to put that story out there so that you understand how that this thing is not far-fetched. It can happen even to the most healthy of us. Now, there's a quote that says that the wounds you cannot see are the hardest to heal. True. So they didn't have any scratches on them at the time, but it was very hard to put the words together. It was more like an internal pain that led into their psychology, and it now affected them. But I know that the event team today is talking about the link between the sexual violence and reproductive tract infection. So I'm going to give you an example of where I work. So my organization works closely with women and girls affected by displacement in humanitarian settings. I will see time and time again how these people experience sexual violence leading to other reproductive tract infection. Now, there's also the emotional and psychological impact of sexual violence. As you may know, most of the times, sexual violence leaves more than just physical scars. So for many people who have survived, we call them survivors, the most painful part of these wounds are the ones that we as individuals do not even see. And that brings them to emotional trauma. They no longer have so people now see them as people who have trust issues because they've been violated in the past. And then the fact that they are constantly, and they are every time in a place, when they sense little danger, what comes to their mind is that I'm going to be harmed, either sexually molested or any other way. So that point, I know that even right now, as I'm still a baby girl anyways, but as an adult, I wasn't up to 18 then, but as an adult now, when I hear of maybe there's war or there's just something not pleasing around me, the first thing that comes to my mind was that incident of what happened, how we were trying to escape for our safety. It's unimaginable, it's unexplained. You really cannot explain it until you have experienced it. It just makes you keep thinking that there might be evil, there might be harm. And these survivors, they often live in post-traumatic stress, PTSD, like we all know. Then there's also the fact of depression, then shame. Then there's also self-blame. People begin to think about, oh, maybe I shouldn't have gone to this place the day I went. Maybe I could have called one of my family members. Maybe I could have done ABC. All of those things begin to play around in their emotions, and that they often, those are the impact of sexual violence. But we're going to be talking, we're already talking about healing beyond the wound. So beyond the physical wound or the internal wound, which we cannot see, is that there's a path and there's a journey to recovery. And it's very important that we emphasize that so that people do no longer dwell on that, because when that continues to happen, there could be suicidal thoughts, and suicidal thoughts could also lead to harm for other people. So I don't know if you've heard of stories of people who kill themselves, kill people around them, just because they are filled with guilt, they're filled with a lot of things, and they don't even know how to come out of it. And then another thing again is silence around it. So oftentimes these people, or people who have experienced sexual violence and are also suffering from reproductive tract infection, they sometimes do not want to talk that they've experienced this. And if they do not talk, it means that whatever disease that is in them, or whatever things they've contracted, it keeps compounding, it keeps expanding to the extent that it's no longer manageable, and it leads to bigger health challenges. And that's a lot of things. And sometimes there's also the culture of silence, cultural silence. So like I said earlier, that I work with more with women affected by displacement. And oftentimes you see when people talk about sexual violence, other women in a group of women, you see that the one woman will tell you, oh, what you've experienced is not even up to what I have experienced. So in a way, they're trying to shut the other woman down. It has now become more like a norm, and they begin to see it that way. Now, uh mental health and reproductive tract infection. So sometimes, like I said, we often overlook mental health when we talk about sexual violence and even reproductive tract infection. So, like I had rightly said, when someone has experienced sexual violence, the ability to seek help is often delayed, which you all know, because there's the fear of the stigma that will be attached to, oh, what if, and what if. Trauma can also impair their it can impair their immunity and also lead to behaviors that increase the risk of infection. So, like I said, they delay seeking care because they do not want to say out what has happened to them, and that can compound the issues. Then, untreated reproductive tract infections can also lead to chronic pain. It can lead to infertility or even more emotional distress. So, every time you think about the disease, you think about the incidents that led to the sexual violence. So, it's most times it's more that people are having PTSD, but it now leads to an actual illness, and then it now deepens the trauma. So it's more like from one stage to another, from one stage to another. Because so please let me know what time I have so that I do not spend too much time. Now, the first step to healing is that we as a community of health-minded people, or people who understand what it means for people to go through issues of life. I'm going to say issues of life because it can happen to anybody, and it is never the fault of the victim. It is always and will always be the fault of the perpetrator. So I know a lot of times people say, oh, what was she wearing and stuff like that. You can address that wherever or some other time, but at the point it is always the fault of the perpetrator, because consent is also a key component of sexual relationship, and if it is out of the consent of this person or forcefully done, then it is termed as a serious criminal offense. Now, what can we do? We can listen with empathy. That's like a step to healing for these people, or even you as an individual. We can listen with empathy, and we can also ensure that the survivor is at the center of care. And this is what I mean. So, more often than not in Nigeria and even outside Nigeria, we see that most times when people are trying to advocate for the health or advocate for change, or so to speak, or justice for a case of violence, a lot of people often forget the survivor in question, and they begin to think of strategies. Oh, we will do it this way. Oh, we will do it that way. Oh, this is the right way to go about it. Have you even given the opportunity to survivor to listen to them, to even understand their process of healing? Have you have we taken time to really listen to them and understand what they want to, how they want to be helped? Because the different thing for you to need help is another thing for you to know exactly how you want this help to come to you. So that's very important. Now, I've also seen how that a lot of healthcare workers, different people, they just speak, in Nigeria, it's quite alarming, because first off, somebody has gone through sexual violence. Secondly, the person already has like an infection that as a result of that. And then thirdly, you're now adding, when our parents often say that there's this proverb that you're adding salt on top of injury. Basically, that's what you're doing. By the time you start to blame them or say some harsh things on them, it makes them think that everything that happened is their fault. But as a community of people who really want help for these people, we need to know that we also have to be part of their healing process. and it begins with being heard, and it also continues with believing them part time what they are saying to us, so that we're able to come to that point where we get justice, and at the same time address any other reproductive tract infection. So what can we do, to truly support survivors? Our response must really be very important, but of course we also have to respond to their needs alongside what they see as the solution, because oftentimes we take away that part. Now, we need access to medical care for infections, of course. Like I said, we cannot keep being in the house or trying to help a survivor by talking and talking. Yes, we know that that's very important, but we also need to ensure that we reach out to them. If it means that we need to take them or refer them to a healthcare center, it's very important. Now, another thing is that there's also to access to mental health services. So we, in terms of, there's therapy, there's also peer support. We've seen how that time and time again, peer support is such a great platform, or more like a safe space for survivors to get healing. When you bring them together, survivors together in the same room, they share their experiences. Some of them talk about their coping mechanisms, other people are able to learn in the process, and that way it just kind of make them know that they're not alone in this, and they can be helped and solution can come. Now, I had already said it, access to justice is very important. We need to seek it. Unfortunately, in this part of the world, justice might seem late, but I also want to think that it is working in some parts. So that's one thing we need to look at. So one thing I want us to really, take home, even as we close out this session, this discussion, is that we need to break the silence. So if we're really intentional about the pathway to healing, we really need to break the silence. I've seen stories or situations where um, girls or women are told to just forget what happened to them. I'm like, forget what happened to them as how? Let me use our Nigerian language as how. I don't understand. Just forget what happened to them. Do you even understand what it means to go through that? You've never been there. Even if you have experienced such, it can never be like the individual who experienced that very incident. So I think that's another way for us to break the silence. What you do, you could even be in like a public transport rather. It doesn't have to be in a formal meeting. You could be in a public transport, somebody talks about this issue, and you're able to say, no, I think this is the right way to do it. That way, even if they do not want to listen to you, but I strongly believe that a seed has been sown, you can address that. Then our healthcare system, while I know that some effort has been made, some others still need constant capacity building to ensure that they reach out to survivors and ensure that they get on that path to healing, because they also have a long they contribute meaningfully in the healing journey of a survivor. Then we also have to ensure that, for instance, for reproductive tract infection, it is not treated haphazardly or treated in some hospital, that it's going to be that when the survivor is out, they would even have more issues than when they got in. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Then I think lastly, we also need to break the silence in ourselves. So most times, as an individual, you sometimes we sometimes find ourselves just saying some things, but if we're very intentional about what we see around those people, it's going to bring healing. And most importantly is that we should understand that when we talk about healing, it's not just trying to survive. Healing is actually whole. So it's from one level to another. And if you break a survivor at a certain level, they go back to square one. So healing is like a journey. So if you do not help them through the process, they keep coming back to the same point. They keep coming back to the same point. And I just want to close by saying that if at all there's anybody who is also a survivor in the call, just understand that take your time. Don't do not force healing. It will eventually come, but be also open to coping or strategies on how to heal, because though it's painful, but healing is actually possible. And just to know that you're not alone, there are other people who are advocating for you, and eventually help would come. And trauma informed care, again, it's more like the first step to healing. So you know what this person is going through, but you're able to also take them through the process and ensure that they get the necessary help to be able to be a better version of themselves in the society where they find themselves, in the world at large. So thank you so much everyone for listening. That brings me to the end of um this session. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mercy, for such a powerful and touching section. And thank you for sharing your personal story, especially what you went through in 2011. It couldn't have been easy, but it really shows your strength and your heart for helping others. We truly appreciate you. Thank you once again. Moving to the next section, we now move into the question and answer section. This is your opportunity to ask our speakers any questions or share your thoughts. You may type your questions in the chat box or use the raise hand feature if you like to speak directly. While we wait for the first hand to go up, here are a few questions to get us started. The first question here is to Mrs. Gracefield, isn't it? Mrs. Gracefield, what are some long-term reproductive health consequences of untreated STIs in survivors of conflict-related sexual violence?
Okay, thank you so much, Vicky. So thank you, Mercy, for that amazing session. It was so much. I had to jot down some things, and really it's amazing. You just came out outrightly to, trauma. There are a lot of women and girls going through trauma, and sometimes are be prevented to speak out and let their voices to be heard, or are scared of seeking support. So thank you so much that we have to break the silence within us first to be able to help others who needs healing. Thank you so much. So the long term of reproductive tract infection to women who who don't speak up when, especially when they are being raped, or one thing or the other happens to them in conflicted environments. First is infertility, and which can cause pelvic inflammatory disease, or can cause damage to the fallopian tube or uterus or ovaries, resulting to reproductive tract infections are not treated early and are not paid attention to, it can cause infertility to women. It can also cause chronic pelvic pains, which can lead to a lot of discomfort during intercourse, or reduce the woman's quality of her reproductive activity. The next is um, miscarriage and pregnancy complications. A lot of women experience miscarriages and they don't know where it's coming from, but they need to check themselves up. Could it be as a result of infection? Could it be as a result of what happened years back, and they couldn't do anything? Sorry, let me also show myself because I didn't show myself in the first conversation, so that you all see me. So this is me right here. Thank you so much. So um, then the next is increased risk of HIV and other sexual transmitted infections. So these are long-term, complications. They are also short-term. They are also long-term complications, and this can affect even childbearing. Even affect the child when a woman is giving birth. It can also result to episiotomy when a woman tries to deliver, and a lot of complications, maybe loss of postpartum hemorrhage as well. A lot of things can result to when there's not the reproductive tract infection is not treated, or untreated reproductive tract infections. These are things that can happen to women. So also cervical cancer, which is one of the major issues that Nigeria health system is advocating for. Cervical cancer, which they are talking about the HPV vaccination, because a lot of women experience reproductive tract infection without them knowing, and it results to cervical cancer, which we even advocated for in the beginning of the year, I think January. And also menstrual irregularities. You see some people seeing their menstruation this month, 2 months after they won't see it because of infection. 3 months after they won't see, menstruation. So irregular menstrual cycles, and it also has psychological and emotional impact. That is why Messi Bolaji had to speak about the psychological trauma that women go through. So even in that IDP camp, there are a lot of women who go through the psychological issues, trauma, being raped, being molested. Even when she was giving her stories in, even in the barracks where people are they run to for help. In that place, they run to for help. There are women who are molested. I was speaking to someone. I said in the world today, we say 70% of women, either they are being raped or molested. They have one thing or the other. I'm just saying, just in essence, just like I'm just giving a percentage. There could be more. And these things also result in affecting women's reproductive health in general. So these are long-term issues that happen to women. Increased maternal mortality, as I also said, that is childbearing, during childbearing, which can threaten the life of the woman. These are the complications that result to untreated reproductive tract infections. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Gracefield. That was such a clear and insightful response. My second question to Mercy is, how can communities foster safe spaces for survivors dealing with both physical and psychological trauma?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can
Okay,
hear
great.
you.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm. So I think the first step to that is for communities to understand that whatever the situation that a survivor or somebody who has experienced sexual violence has experienced is not something rare. It's something that is happening. That's the first step. And then that way it makes them take ownership of the fact that the survivor is not just in that alone, but they are in it together. And then so secondly is that communities can foster safe spaces by ensuring that they create open, safe, and non-judgmental spaces or gatherings or even conversations. So it's not just even a gathering where you have like a formal safe space session. You know how that somebody has experienced, let's say rape, one of the forms of gender-based violence, and somehow, somewhere, maybe it's even the daughter of somebody, we've seen it in the camp community where we work, and somehow somebody just, the girl passes by and one person and another person starts saying, oh, that's the girl, oh, that's the girl. That way you're trying to say that whatever happens is her fault and she's not welcomed in that community. So I think it really starts by when the communities, and when we talk about community, not just a space, is the people who make up the community, that the space that makes it a community. When they begin to give open, non-judgmental, and have that kind of conversation that ensures that these people that have experienced this health challenge or sexual violence are also part of the discussion. So another thing again that I often see is that a lot of times they begin to look at them with some kind of eye. They begin to exclude them from major conversations. So let me give you a typical example. There was a particular time that a girl was raped in the camp community. Somehow, the father was, I think he was a part of the leadership of the camp at the time, and somehow they, was it that they suspended him? We heard that they didn't give him the opportunity to be even part of the decision making. Just imagine what that can mean for the person. It's not even the girl who is affected now, is her father. Imagine what that can mean to the family. So I think it starts by ensuring that no matter what has happened, it's not the community versus the person who has experienced sexual violence. It is the community, which is inclusive of the girl or the women, versus the perpetrator. That way you can create a safe space for people who have experienced that. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I also want to add to what you said, Mercy. There was a story that went out of a young girl, I think 10 years or 9 years, that was raped, and the parents rejected her. The parents didn't want her, and in that group, I saw that there were people looking for where they could accommodate this girl, and this is something that could affect her in a very long time. This is we're talking about a 9 years old girl, and this is something that can affect her for a very long time. So we need to create spaces where we can always talk to these girls. We can always talk to. They can be free to come to speak up. Even in that IDP camp, due to conflicts that resulted to them being in that IDP camp, there are a lot of girls who are being molested, who are being raped, but because they don't want to be rejected, they don't want to be, you know, pointed fingers at. They keep quiet. So we need to create, if it's possible, even in schools, that's curriculum activities that they do. That's different classes, different units. They can also create a safe space. Look, okay, this without being judged. We create this maybe train these health care practitioners, even the teachers in schools, or even in that camp, leaders, women leaders, who can actually create a room for girls, women to speak up. And it's only when they speak up that is when they can get justice. But if they don't speak up, they cannot be justice. And if they don't speak up, these reproductive tract infections will not be treated, and they will continue to live with these infections that can affect them in a very long term, even affect their unborn babies. So creating that safe space is paramount. And if it's possible, we need to let people, these policy leaders, to know that we need to create safe space, even in schools, even in IDP camp, in environments where conflicts happen and people are, in need of it. So that is it. Thank you so much, Mercy.
Yes, you're right. Thank you so much for that addition.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a powerful perspective. I have one last question, and the question is for the both speakers. What policy reforms are most critical right now to support survivors in Nigeria and Africa at large? Should I repeat the question?
Yes, you is
I
it's
got that. I got that.
Mercy, I think you would speak on this, or
All right. Yes, sure, sure. It's fine. So, thank you very much. There's the violence, the very popular one, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2014. There's also the 2019. In 2019, there was a launch of the sexual and gender violence response offenders register. Yes, because I was even part of that launch of that event in Abuja in 2019. So those are like the two that I know. Of course, there are quite a number of, there's been a lot of reforms, but currently now I think it's the VAP Act that tops the charts of, a document or a policy or an act that you can refer to say, oh, against this is the jail term for a particular type of sexual offense, and this person must do it. Those exist, but the major problem with policies in our context is the implementation Unfortunately, we keep getting policies day in, day out, but implementation is quite weak. And implementation is weak in the sense that there hasn't been a lot of accountability mechanism. So when I talk about accountability mechanism, is that people that are expected to see to the end of whatever document that has been implemented, I mean that has been produced or formulated, they are not, they do not hold anybody accountable. So people just do things the way they want it to be done. But in the real sense, yes, a lot of people use that. I know that except if it has changed, I know that there's the jail term of, is it 14 or 15 years for rape, and quite a number of people are faithfully now, for lack of a better word, using that to serve jail terms to perpetrators. But there are still some intricacies about that document, because even in some states in Nigeria, they do not totally accept it. They still feel like, oh, some component of it, it's not, does not align with culture. So a lot of times policy, culture find itself in policy, and then the implementation becomes weak. But of course there are, and even that sexual violence offenders register, what they do, what that register is for, is to, whenever you've been caught or as a perpetrator, your name is written on that register. It becomes a national register. They take it, it goes, they publicize it, it goes viral. People know that, oh, this person has committed this, and this is the offense that should be given to the person. So yes, it does exist, but I don't know if Gracefield also has other ones. But yeah, this is like the top document that they usually use for sexual violence in Nigeria.
Okay, yes. You talked about the VAP Act, and I think I just concluded an article on that VAP as regards female genital mutilation, and there were a lot of things that I noticed, that even some states are yet to implement, that policy. As Messi rightly said, there's a different thing to, incorporate a policy. Is a different thing for people to, actually accept these policies. And you said cultural barrier is also affecting these policies. Not only cultural, even religious, issues are also affecting these policies. And it's there are a lot of people that have not even incorporated these policies in, fighting against sexual violence and even female genital mutilation. So the VAP Act is that is a policy that is ongoing, but we need to push it more. I even gave a recommendation that if it's possible, anonymous eyewitnesses can be around these communities, and in a way get to see people who are into this kind of practices, and report back to higher ups who will be able to give justice to these girls, to these women. So that is something we need to also keep pushing and keep advocating for. So I think that is it for me.
All right, thank you both for those valuable contributions. It is so important to hear from both clinical and community perspectives. Thank you for helping us understand the bigger pictures. Is there anyone with any more questions? No questions? All right. Thank you all for your questions and engagements. At this point, I will hand over to Mrs. Gracefield to walk us through some key highlights, opportunities for advocacy, and how you can stay involved in these movements. Mrs. Gracefield.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bekisu. Thank you so much for moderating this program or this conversation today. So, this is a call to action. As earlier stated, the Disinfect Her Empowerment Initiative is a registered non-profit organization that seeks to empower the health and well-being of women and girls through educational materials, through campaigns, and helping them know when to speak out and all. So this is a call to action. I want us to keep speaking up. I want us to also impact our society. As I earlier said, it starts with you. No matter how little, it starts with you in that your community, in that your social media handle, in that your platform. in that community that you are in, that social media community, that life community, you can always speak up, you can always educate. So the Disinfect Her Initiative also seek supporters who will push this vision to where it needs to be by educating and empowering and creating awareness about reproductive tract infection. So we still call out for volunteers, we still seek supporters, we still seek partners. We are looking for partners who will partner with us to carry out this project. We're also looking at aside partnership, a partnership in kind and partnership financially. This is what we are seeking to make the Disinfect Her Initiative empowerment initiative needs to be where it ought to be. As we said from the beginning, our goal from now to 2030 is to reach out to 50,000 women in Africa. And thankfully, we have one volunteer in Zimbabwe, but we hope to get more volunteers, even in Africa, in Ghana, even in conflicted areas in Africa where a lot of women experiences this sexual violence, and also in turn have issues of reproductive tract infection. So we call out on you to help us make our vision visible, make our vision bold, and make our vision, accessible, and our goal to be achievable. So thank you so much. We are always here. You can always reach out to us through our social media platform at the Disinfector. That is for Instagram, on LinkedIn, Disinfector Empowerment Initiative, on Facebook, still at Disinfector, and we'll be willing to to welcome and accept your support in any way you can. Thank you so much. And also, you have the opportunity, there are a lot of opportunity that waits for you for supporting our vision and our mission at the Disinfect Her Empowerment Initiative. Thank you so much, because every action, every support you give counts in making a woman, in making a girl's life better, and in creating a healthy society for each and every one of us. Thank you so much. Over to you, Bekesu.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Gracefield. As we come to the end of today's powerful discussion, I want to express deep gratitude to our brilliant speakers, Mrs. Gracefield Godwin and Mercy Bolaji, and every participant here today. Your presence and attention mean everything. Let's take this energy beyond the screen. Let's raise awareness, amplify survivor voices, and push for justice, health access, and healing. Don't forget to follow DHEI across all social media. Volunteer with us or share today's lessons with your communities. I'm going to drop the link to our social media handles in the chat box. Please kindly follow us on social media. Remember, silence protects no one. Awareness is power. Support is healing. Thank you and have a peaceful, purposeful day ahead.
Thank you so much, Bilkisu, Gracefield, and every other person. Thank you. Mhm.
Please, can we take a picture? I don't know if it's possible for us to uh actually show our faces.
Oh, yes, sure. We can.
Please, let's uh, our faces. Are we all here? Please, let's show our faces. Thank you so much. Bilkis, are you also taking a picture? Is Bilkis off the call? Okay, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Okay,
All right.
Bilkis, you are back. Yes, please,
Yeah,
please,
I'm
please,
back.
please.
Let me take it.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.